Christmas, everyone! Back in 2022, I did a series of videos on TikTok called The December Project. It was one video a day, every day of December, talking about the history, myths, and stories of the holiday season. A video advent calendar of Christmas goodness, and well, it's hard to find over there. So I've compiled all the 2022 December Project videos here onto one video. Couple things, some of these videos are going to have watermarks on them, and that's because I was responding to people's comments, and only those comments show up on the saved phone video, and I don't like it, but it works. Also, it is in vertical format, which is why I've added the fun backgrounds. If you want to see more of the December Project series that I did in later years, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and ding the notification bell to let you know when I upload more content. All that said, enjoy! Hi! I'm using this video to introduce the December Project, where we'll be talking about December holidays, traditions, and their origins. So here's what to expect from the series. First, we're going to focus mostly on traditions and not religions. This series is not meant to attack nor endorse anyone's beliefs. We're just looking at things that people do this time of year. Second, considering how much of modern Christmas traditions came from marketing, I expect some ruffled feathers when people learn their beloved tradition began with an ad campaign. I'm sorry in advance. Third, when we're talking about traditions, there's going to be a lot of people who celebrate differently with different traditions, and that's great! Celebrate whatever you do, however it makes you and your family happy. And finally, we're going to do a lot of research and bring you the best information we can, but mistakes will happen, so leave comments to help us make this better, or if there's stuff you'd like to see covered. And check my December Project playlist to catch all the videos. Happy holidays, everyone, and looking forward to seeing you in December. I want to give a preview of the December Project by answering something. Why do people hate Christmas music so much? I think I can answer that with Scott Weiland's Christmas album entitled The Most Wonderful Time of the Year. Yeah, it's former lead singer of the Stone Temple Pilots, and yes, this exists. When you look at the track list, there's no surprises, and when you listen to any given track...
Have yourself a merry little Christmas.
It sounds like almost every other version ever made, but here's the punchline. Years ago, one of the alternative rock stations in Chicago played nothing but this album on repeat all Christmas Day. And those are the problems. Christmas songs that get airplay are the standards. Even the new Christmas song sounds a lot like the old standards, with notable exceptions. Christmas standards are safe and inoffensive, and almost every music artist has made a version of them. The repetition of sugar-sweet forced happiness gets to be too much, especially when it's all you hear for 2 months. It's a modern tradition that we tolerate because it's Christmas! Kind of like fruitcake, and arguments that this is a Christmas movie. Ooh, that should spark something in the comments. Hi! So I want to kick off the December Project with why I say Happy Holidays instead of Merry Christmas. I mean, look at me. If anyone should be saying Merry Christmas, it's me, right? But I don't, out of respect. You see, December has, let me see, St. Nicholas Day, which is Christian, Rohatsu, which is a Buddhist holiday, Immaculate Conception, which is Catholic, Hanukkah, which is Jewish, the Winter Solstice, celebrated by Wicca, Pagan, and a few others, Christmas, which is Christian, and that's without mentioning things like Posadas Navideñas, Yule, Kwanza, and the very rare occasion that Ramadan is in December. 2030, I say do a Google search. So there's a lot going on in December, and just looking at someone, well, for some it's obvious, but I can't tell what most people celebrate, if they celebrate anything at all. So I would much rather say to them, Happy Holidays, which pretty much covers everything. It doesn't hurt to be inclusive, especially this time of year, so Happy Holidays, everyone! Who is Santa? Well, he's a really nice guy who runs a toy shop and loves cookies, but what's his history? Around 280 AD, there was a monk named St. Nicholas who lived in what is now modern-day Turkey. As the stories go, he would give gifts to the poor in ways to not draw attention to himself, so when people got mysterious gifts, it was from St. Nicholas. After the Reformation in 16th century Europe, St. Nicholas was forced out of favor, but people still liked giving gifts, so someone had to bring the gifts for the children. So in the UK, he became known as St. Christmas, Old Man Christmas, or Father Christmas. Germany and Austria had Christkind, and the Dutch celebrated Sinterklaas, all of which still exist in some form to this day. Modern Santa is a blend of all those traditions and stories combined with some modern print media adding a lot of backstory like the North Pole. Come to think of it, Sinterklaas is the origin of the name Santa Claus, and kind of like Christkind is the origin of Kris Kringle. Do I want to mention the Odin Connection? Nah, people get upset by that. All I know is I'm staying on Santa's good side. Will a Santa Mouse be bringing books this holiday season? Well, okay, not me, but... Okay, so everyone's heard of Elf on a Shelf, and that thing creeps me out, by the way. Well, how about something a little different? Rook with a book. It's an idea popularized by author Delilah Dawson, but I think we can take some creative liberties here. It's simple. A magical raven that brings books to young readers over the holiday season. And I mean, it wouldn't take much. Just invite a cutie like this into your home and place it someplace that can leave books for the little ones to read, and just let the magic happen. And then, out of the Christmas season, it might be able to, you know, drop a couple more books throughout the year. She also mentioned a couple other things in the thread we can borrow too, like Mink with a Drink who brings gourmet hot chocolate, or Heart with the Art who brings art supplies. Didn't you know red deer were called Heart? But why stop there? A cougar with a ruler for kids who want to build stuff, a raccoon on the moon to teach kids astronomy, or a wolf with 2 all-expense-paid tickets to Hawaii for a week's vacation. What? Nothing rhymes with wolf, so I mean, why not? Happy holidays! We're all used to seeing Santa in red like this, so why red? And what's up with the blue Santas? It starts with St. Nicholas of Myrnia, who was often depicted wearing red robes. Then after the Reformation, and that's a whole other story, Father Christmas was depicted wearing lots of colors. Yellow, white, brown, blue, green, which I'm a fan of personally, and of course, red. In the late 19th century, there was an informal standardization of Santa, thanks in part to the poem A Visit from St. Nicholas and the artwork of Thomas Nast and Norman Rockwell. They settled on a red suit because it was popular at the time with the public. Since all we've seen for like 5 generations is Santa in red, everything else seems off, at least in the US. So why are there blue Santas now? Well, it's being used in the US mostly by police departments' Santa outreach programs, but there's no hidden meaning behind any particular color, and there's no rule saying Santa has to wear red. If Santa wants to wear pink, hey, I'm all for it. And yes, I know where to get those too. December 6th is St. Nicholas Day. Considering he's kind of the source for a lot of modern Christmas tradition, let's speedrun his history. St. Nicholas was born in the 3rd century in what is now modern-day Turkey. His story is that he was raised a devout Christian by wealthy parents who died in an epidemic. He used his inheritance to help the needy, sick, and poor by taking Jesus' words to heart. He became Bishop of Myra, was persecuted by Romans, and died on December 6, 343 AD. Roughly, after 1700 years, historical accuracy is a little bit fuzzy. In the 16th century, the Reformation movement in the church pushed a lot of the old saints out of the picture, including St. Nicholas. However, in Holland, they kept the tradition called Sinterklaas. In it, St. Nicholas arrives on horseback on his feast day, wearing his red robes, bringing sweets for good children and coal for bad ones, and he travels with his assistant, Zwarte Piet, and the latter is a can of worms that I'm not opening in this video. When the Dutch came to the New World, the name was Americanized from Sinterklaas to Santa Claus. Since this is St. Nicholas Day, it's a good time to help people who are less fortunate, or even just be kind to people today. Not all gifts have to be bought. Something to consider today. Did Coca-Cola invent the modern version of Santa? Well, yes and no. Mostly no. But like everything else involving history, the real story is complicated. Up until the early 1800s, Father Christmas was often portrayed as a stout old woodsman, and in 1823, A Visit from St. Nicholas was published, the night before Christmas. And that describes St. Nick as a pipe-smoking, elf-like guy with a round belly. People loved the poem, and the description stuck. As early as 1881, Thomas Nast was making artwork portraying round-belly Santa in red, and popular artists stuck to the red theme because that was popular with the audience, like this 1862 print by F.O.C. Darley, or the several Norman Rockwell covers. In 1927, the New York Times even reported a standard description of Santa Claus, including his red outfit. So by the time Haddon Sundblom drew Santa for Coca-Cola in 1930, Santa's look was well cemented in popular culture. So no, Coca-Cola did not invent modern Santa or make him wear red for branding. But to this day, there's an entire category of Cola Santa apparel featuring a button-down front instead of the fur trim. And if you thought fursuits were expensive, hoo boy! But Santa's got style, doesn't he? We all know Santa comes into the chimney to deliver presents, right? Well, there's a lot of kids who live in apartment buildings or other places without a chimney, and they might want to know how Santa's gonna get in. And this is how he does. These are Santa's keys. The big guy has a set on him when he takes off on Christmas Eve, and a bunch of us keep spares, or just in case. But with these keys and a little Santa magic, he can open doors and bring in all the presents, and then he locks it behind him before going on to the next stop. Some families even hang one on their door for Christmas Eve with a note card for Santa. Either side of the door works. You might wonder where you can get one. Well, if you go to antique stores or some thrift shops, they might have a key that looks a lot like this one, and you'll know if it's a Santa key or not. And if you're really crafty, you can make a wooden Santa key, and it works just as well. There you go. Happy holidays! Every year in the U.S., we put out milk and cookies for Santa. You ever wonder how Santa got his love for those? Well, it could be a lot of things. I've seen it traced back all the way to Norse mythology, where children left out treats for Odin's horse during his Yule hunting adventures. Centuries later in the Netherlands, kids would leave cookies out for Father Christmas in the same way. Well, not as much cookies as we know them, but they're dense, cakey things. But back then, sugar and spices were luxury items, so if you got a sugar cookie from someone, that was a really super special gift. But it really picks up around the Victorian era, when being a good host or hostess was really important. If you had a guest over, you'd give them a welcoming gift or a treat. And what better special treat could a kid leave for Father Christmas than some sugar cookies with some milk to wash them down? Nowadays, kids around the world leave all sorts of things for Santa. In Chile, it's pan de Pascua. In the UK, it's mince pies. In Iceland, it's leva bread. In Sweden, it's often a cup of coffee. And kids in Argentina, Holland, and France often leave hay, carrots, and water for the reindeer. Nobody leaves cheese out for the mice working back at the NP, though. But it's okay. We do a potluck for the overnighter. Happy holidays! I almost feel like I should be borrowing someone's camo jacket for today's video, because today we're talking about the North American Aerospace Defense Command, America's early warning system against nuclear strikes, and how they tie into Christmas. It's kind of crazy. In 1955, Sears ran an ad which invited kids to call Santa's phone. The official story is that the phone number was a misprint, and children called Con Ed Central Command Officer Colonel Harry Shoup, who played along as the phone was ringing off the hook, and just let kids know that Santa was on his way. The reality is probably something closer to the lines of this newspaper clipping from Pasadena Independent newspaper from December 1st, 1955. 1945, where he wasn't nearly as nice. Until an 80-year-old steps forward who remembers that call, we'll never know the truth. Without getting into the politics of why, NORAD decided to start publicly tracking Santa on Christmas Eve of 1955, and they've done so ever since. Over the years, they've updated his position with radio and TV spots, and this year they're going to have updates available by phone or the internet. They got some heat a few years ago for militarizing Santa when they mocked up F-18's flying escort. Yeah, right, like F-18s could keep up with Santa's team. Anyway, happy holidays, everyone. There's a darker side to Christmas, and I'm not talking about Mariah Carey coming back every year. We're talking about Krampus. Krampus himself is depicted as a sort of part human, part goat creature with fur, horns, and a tail. He comes on December 5th, the day before St. Nicholas Day, as people celebrate... can I call it celebrate? Yeah, sure, why not? Celebrate Krampusnacht. It's the night where Krampus visits bad children, beats them with a bundle of birch sticks, places them in chains and baskets, and takes them away to parts unknown. I told you it was dark. The detailed history of Krampus is debated, but it is agreed that he's drawn from ancient pagan traditions, possibly as a player in the rituals to disperse the ghosts of winter. When Christianity spread, Krampus was just folded into Christmas traditions, which is why Krampus is often depicted working with St. Nicholas. It's also probably why Krampus took a demonic turn in his history. Ironically, the church has tried to ban Krampus celebrations several times, and it didn't work. Make of that what you will. Krampus is a balance of St. Nicholas. It's the dark and the light, and that's why I think Krampus has been gaining popularity around the world. It's just a little bit of horror in what's otherwise a sickeningly sweet time of year. So, happy holidays? If you're good. Pop quiz, what is this plant? If you said poinsettia, you're in for a wild ride of the racist history of how this became a Christmas staple. This plant is called Quetla Xochi. It's native to Mexico, where it has a long and rich history going back to the ancient Aztecs. Then the conquistadors came with Christianity. The Franciscan friars repurposed the Quetla Xochi into a symbol of Mexico's evangelization, using them as Christmas decorations. Fast forward to 1825, when Joel Robert Poinsett was appointed by President Adams as the first American diplomat to Mexico. Poinsett was trying to make Mexico a self-governing country, and I'm quoting him, but only if white Creoles ran Mexico. Yeah, saying he was a racist is an understatement. Long story short, he was eventually thrown out of Mexico, but not before he took cuttings of Quetla Xochi plants, grew from stateside, and then got credited for discovering it and had the plant named after him. Inspired by the Franciscans in Mexico, Poinsett spent his later years marketing his poinsettias as a symbol of Christmas, and he made himself a small fortune, and because of that, they're now a Christmas staple. I mean, they're beautiful, but we shouldn't be calling them by the name of a racist who basically stole it from their native land. I was hoping someone would ask about this. Yeah, there's a tradition of making spider and web ornaments and hanging them in your Christmas tree. It has origins in Ukraine, where it's called Pavuchky, meaning little spiders. There's a lot of variations on the origin folktale, but here's one that I like. A poor widow was cleaning her home for her family before Christmas, and as she cleaned the house, the spiders hid in the attic to stay out of the way. The spiders came down on Christmas Eve to see a tree with no decorations, and the spiders felt sad. So they decorated the tree with their web strands, and in the morning light, the strands transformed into silver and gold. A Christmas miracle! Okay, so to a lot of you that sounds more creepy than heartwarming, until you realize that a lot of you put tinsel in your tree? Okay, so the story of Pavuchky is not the origin of tinsel in trees, but there's more than just a passing connection. In places like Poland, Germany, and Ukraine, they consider it good luck to find spider webs in their trees. So yeah, people put spider web and spider ornaments in their trees, not to be creepy, but to bring good luck and fortune for the coming year. Happy holidays! Okay, another episode where I gotta be careful what images I show so the religious person doesn't false flag it. That's already happened. So, Caganer. It's a tradition from the Catalonia region of northeastern Spain, and it's a figurine that they hide in the nativity scene of a dude. And they've been doing it since the late 17th century to bring good luck and prosperity and health, and modern scholars are debating a deeper meaning like it represents fertilizing crops. But come on! It's a practical joke that got out of hand a few hundred years ago. Oh, and before you ask, they also have this thing called Tio de Nadal. It's a log that you feed food scraps to, and on Christmas, kids sing songs to it while hitting it with a stick, and it puts out candy and presents. If anyone says it's unbelievable that a mouse works OSINT for Santa, you have no idea how bizarre Christmas can get. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house, not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. It's probably the most influential thing ever written about Santa. It gave Santa his flying reindeer, his sleigh, the chimney trick, and inspired artists to draw Santa as a jolly fat man and not Daddy Christmas. But would you believe we really don't know who wrote A Visit from St. Nicholas? If you look it up, the author is listed as Clement Moore. He claimed that as a scholar and professor of several languages, he was embarrassed by the piece and didn't want to claim authorship for 20 years. However, there's a strong case that it was actually written by Major Henry Livingston, who was distantly related to Moore's wife. A modern forensic linguist looked at both men's prior works and said A Visit from St. Nicholas was actually written by Livingston. My question is, why did neither man step forward initially? The poem was published in 1823 anonymously in the Troy Sentinel, and the only reason Moore claimed authorship was that someone else claimed Moore wrote it after Livingston's passing. I'm guessing that whoever wrote it thought that the piece was too ephemeral, not important enough to be remembered. And yet, 200 years later, we all know the opening line. 'twas the night before Christmas, and all yesterday I talked about a visit from St. Nicholas, and today I want to talk about how I was retconned by a department store. In 1939, Robert May was working in the ad department of Montgomery Ward in Chicago. As a marketing assignment, they told May to write a Christmas coloring book about an animal so that they could have a promotional giveaway. And he started with a visit from St. Nicholas and built up a story about hope and perseverance in the face of adversity, and it struck a chord in post-Depression America. Montgomery Ward distributed 2.4 million copies in 1939 alone, and for his efforts, May only got his salary. But in 1947, Montgomery Ward gave the rights to Rudolph back to Robert May. His brother-in-law, Johnny Marks, wrote a song based on the book in 1949, and the rest goes down in history. I'm kind of torn how I feel about Rudolph. I could give a full dissertation, but The Song You Hate is not the book that was written. The song feels like Santa exploiting Rudolph, and the book reads more like Santa stumbles into Rudolph by chance and asks him for help. On the other paw, Rudolph is trademarked. Quote, "The mark comprises a red-tipped nose on any fanciful deer-like animal." So yeah, I got mixed feelings about this one here. Never let it be said that I don't give the people what they want. You want Christmas pickle? You get Christmas pickle. Many families have a pickle ornament that hangs somewhere in their tree. And as the old German tradition goes, the first one to find the pickle gets a prize of some kind. And, here's where I let a lot of you down, because it's a marketing ploy. In the 1800s, Woolworths sold glass ornaments in fruit shapes, and they just couldn't sell the ones that looked like pickles because they disappeared on the tree. Someone with a head for marketing saw that they came from Germany and just outright invented the tradition of hiding the pickle. I mean, nobody in Germany even knows about this unless they have American friends who told them. And over the years, even more stories were invented to sell these things, and, well, it works. But you know, it's fun. It's a game parents can play with their kids on Christmas Day, kind of Where's Waldo on expert mode. It may not be an old world German tradition, but if it's something that brings joy to your family, make it your tradition. Happy holidays, everyone! Tonight is the first night of Hanukkah, so we're going to talk a bit about the origin tonight and the traditions tomorrow. First off, there's a few ways to spell Hanukkah in English because it's romanized from Hebrew, so pick one you're okay with. And second, the reason it moves around from year to year is because it's on the Hebrew calendar, which is lunisolar, and not the Gregorian calendar the US uses. So why is Hanukkah 8 days long? Hanukkah translates as dedication. See, every Jewish synagogue has to have an eternal light above the ark. As the story is written in the Talmud, the 2nd century BCE, a group of Jewish soldiers known as the Maccabees reclaimed a temple the Greeks had desecrated. When they rededicated the temple, they discovered they only had 1 day's worth of oil for the eternal light. They sent the soldier to go find more, but the 1 jar of oil that they did have lasted the 8 days it took for that soldier to return from the mission. Hanukkah is therefore a time of rededication of all kinds. The modern Hanukkah celebration we see today is a product of American Judaism, which is very aware of the themes of Hanukkah and how it still applies, mainly oppression for your beliefs and fighting for religious freedom. But it also has become a time to be with family and friends, so happy Hanukkah! Yesterday we talked about the story of Hanukkah, and today we're going to talk about the traditions. First is the menorah. Every night candles are lit to symbolize the number of days in the miracle of the oil. First is a shamash, which is used to light the others, and then 1 candle on the first day, 2 on the second, and so on. And you've probably seen a dreidel, which is a game played with a 4-sided top. All the players put a token like gelt into a pot, and the players take turns spinning the dreidel. And depending on what side it lands on, you either do nothing, put a token in, win half the pot, or win the whole pot, and whoever gets all the tokens wins. Weirdly, gift-giving is a more modern twist on Hanukkah only in the last 100 years. As I said in yesterday's video, Hanukkah as celebrated now is a very American adaptation, so it borrows gift-giving from Christmas. The first day gifts are kind of kitschy, but they get grander, but every family is different. But I can't ignore the food. Potato latkes and jelly donuts. I can just stop there, because those are delicious. And depending on who you celebrate with, it's like Thanksgiving, but actually good. I'm not a fan of turkey, okay? But the food is just kind of an excuse to get together in this time of year and be with your friends and family. Happy Hanukkah! Just so we're clear, there's almost Matt-Pat levels of reaching to make things connect here, but yes, there's a connection that could hang on a second, let me get the right mood. Prove that Odin the Allfather of Norse mythology is Santa Claus. Odin has a flying horse named Sleipnir. On Yuletide, Odin flies through the sky on the wild hunt against the ice giants of winter. He sends ravens to find out who is good and bad, would give gifts made by elves and dwarves, and sometimes is depicted in a chariot, or dare I call it, a sleigh. And they call him the Yule Father. Look, when I read all the material about this, I get Kennedy Lincoln vibes. You can connect anything to anything if you stretch the material enough. Most of the source material supporting the Odin to Santa connection is Viking related, so a little bit of a bias. Yeah, there's a strong connection between modern Christmas and traditions like Yule. We'll get into that tomorrow. But most of modern Santa was influenced by a poem written in the 1820s that drew on Santa Claus, Father Christmas, the actual St. Nicholas, and yes, Norse mythology. We shouldn't be surprised that we can draw connections. Today is the winter solstice, the shortest day and the longest night of the year. It's also the day when a lot of pagans celebrate Yule, mostly because we can't do a proper 2-month Yule bender these days. There's a lot of tribal traditions and celebrations around the winter solstice, way before recorded history, so not surprisingly, at least 3 cultures claim to have started calling it Yule. But the gist of them is all the same. The days are getting longer, the weather's getting warmer, let's party. At least in the northern hemisphere, but that's geography. Most of what we consider modern Christmas traditions actually come from Yule celebrations. Putting a tree in the house, mistletoe and holly, wreaths on the door, singing carols, drinking alcohol alcoholic beverages. I mean, literally, it's still called a Yule log. All these things are based on pagan beliefs and rituals around the winter solstice that were blended into Christmas by Emperor Constantine in 336 AD. I've read a lot of home rituals and celebrations for Yule, but I really don't feel qualified to say what is standard. I'll leave that to Wicca and Witch Talk to do. But I will wish you all a Merry Yuletide and Happy Solstice. We can't do a series about Christmas without mentioning Emperor Constantine and how he single-handedly changed Christmas. And before anybody false flags this video out of hate, this is very well documented history, and it's not my fault if the first time you've heard about this is from a mouse on the internet. Constantine the Great was a Roman emperor from 306 to 337 AD, and he was also the first Roman emperor that converted to Christianity. Now at the time, most Romans were polytheistic, meaning they believed in and celebrated many gods. One of the most popular celebrations was Saturnalia, which was the winter solstice celebration honoring the god of agriculture, Saturn. People would hang wreaths on their door, light candles, give gifts to each other, drink and feast, and pretty much party hard for a week. And the party just kept rolling through Sol Invictus, which was the birthday of the sun god Mithras. Like I said, it was popular. Emperor Constantine wanted to make Christianity just as popular, so in 336 AD, he just declared Christmas, the birth of Christ, was December 25th. The same day Saturnalia ended and Sol Invictus began. And he just blended existing celebrations into Christmas. Then when Christianity expanded into Europe, they just blended in Yule too for the same reasons. Literally written in history books. It's all there if you want to fact check me. Ooh, more creepy Christmas. The tradition of Merry Lwyd, also known as the original epic rap battle. So let's talk about the Grey Mare. Merry Lwyd is a Welsh tradition celebrated from Christmas Day to the 12th night on January 6th. She's depicted as, this, a real or crafted horse skull decorated with ribbons or ornaments and wrapped in a white sheet. The history is kind of murky because it's all Celtic mythology, over 3,000 years old, and it got folded into Christmas because Solstice? Probably, no one's really quite sure. They show up at the doorstep of someone's house or a pub or wherever, and they're accompanied by a troupe of musicians and other performers. Once there, Merry Lwyd tries to get in, and those inside try to keep her out, and it's done as a back-and-forth rhyming insult battle between the two parties, and eventually those inside relent and they let her in with her troupe of players. After that, there's some mischief, a bit of drinking, and food, and songs, and merriment before Merry Lwyd moves on to the next place. She's seen as a protective spirit, and letting her into your home is supposed to give a blessing of luck throughout the year. There's not a lot of places that host Merry Lwyd celebrations outside of South Wales anymore, but I do like it that an ancient folk tradition still survives to this day. I have a Christmas Eve story for you, but I need to let someone with more expertise tell it.
1914, the first year of World War I. A war that was only supposed to last a few months was dragging into a cold, miserable winter. On Christmas Eve, something spontaneously happened. There are several confirmed stories, starting with soldiers smuggling Christmas trees to the front line. German soldiers sang Christmas carols, English soldiers sang them back louder, and the offer was sent: meet us in the middle. And in several places along the western and eastern front, they did. It became known as the Christmas Truce. Both sides met unarmed in no man's land. On the practical side, they let them bury the fallen, but on the human side, they shook hands, exchanged gifts, shared alcohol, traded cigarettes. There was even a soccer match in no man's land. The higher-ups were horrified. Fraternizing with the enemy like that was just not acceptable, and they made sure it never happened again. But in that brief moment, a war stopped because soldiers found they shared something in common. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Today is Christmas Day, which is the day that Christians celebrate the birth of Jesus. I need to break character here to explain this video. On one paw, the whole point of the December project is to talk about the traditions and celebrations in December, but on the other, most of my audience is from the United States of America, and here it's impossible to not get bludgeoned with non-secular Christmas. It's the only religious federal holiday. It's why people get violently offended at coffee cups. American politicians claim you can't say Merry Christmas anymore, and the phrase, the reason for the season, is on billboards and advertisements. It's the default setting by force. That's why I'm actually scared to talk about religious Christmas. The series has already been attacked by religious types when I talked about Santa. Just imagine what they'd do if I talk about Jesus in a way they don't like. In the real world, I've had multiple Christians credibly threaten to unalive me in the name of their savior, so online violence is nothing to them. So you'll have to forgive me if I don't dedicate a video to religious practices that feel violently opposed on people like me. But all that said, I wish you all a Merry Christmas, even when they really won't. Today is Boxing Day, and as much as I want to say it's a day about getting face tattoos and entering the ring, it's not nearly that violent, thankfully. It's a British holiday where rich people would give their servants gift boxes to ensure good service throughout the whole year. One of the earliest mentions is from 1663. An English parliamentarian wrote about it in his diary. By the Victorian era, Christmas was kind of a big deal for the English upper class, which means that the lower class had to work all Christmas for them. So Boxing Day became their way to let the servants have the next day off and give them gifts for themselves and their families, or to tip people like mail carriers or milkmen who did the daily door-to-door visits. nuts. Is another possible explanation? Churches had these alms boxes near their doors, so the day after Christmas the clergy would open up the boxes and give the donations to the poor. So, Unboxing Day, I guess? In modern times, Boxing Day is kind of the UK version of Black Friday, but overall, Boxing Day is pretty uniquely British. A holiday based on class economic systems where rich elites seem to run everything and the lower class workers do everything to make them money is something that I totally can't understand because that totally doesn't exist here. Did the raccoon write this? I think he tweaked my script here. Kwanza is celebrated from the day after Christmas through New Year's Day, and it's relatively new, so what's it all about? Kwanza celebrations honors African heritage and African American culture. It gets its name from the Swahili phrase Matunda ya Kwanza, the first fruits harvest festivals in Africa. Every day is a celebration of one of the 7 principles, and a candle is lit on the kinara to honor them. And on the last day, families get together for Karamu, a feast where families honor the past and look forward to the future. The Kwanza festival was created by Dr. Malana Kernga in 1966 in response to the opposition to the civil rights movement. He wanted a way to bring African Americans together and promote Black culture. As a result, it's very much a cultural celebration meant to connect people, and since it's celebrated after Christmas, it's also meant to act as a guide moving forward into the new year. Considering the last few years, Kwanza has taken a role of more importance, highlighting not just the struggles of the African American experience, but also empowering a group of people who have a history of being oppressed. So for all those who celebrate, I wish you a happy Kwanza! Put this one into the I didn't know I needed to know this category of Christmas trivia. The 12 Days of Christmas! Every year, PNC Bank does a cost breakdown of the song. And this year, counting each repetition of the song, so 364 total gifts, the 12 Days of Christmas would cost you $197,071.09, up almost 10% from last year due to the increase of gold prices and performer wages. In case you're curious, according to the PNC chart, the most expensive would be the 10 Lords of Leaping at $13,980 a day, and the cheapest is the 8 Maids of Milking at $58 a day. The Partridge in a Pear Tree is $280 together, but just the partridge is $20. Oh, and if you're gonna e-shop for all this stuff, the true cost of the 12 Days of Christmas is $227,441.72 online. So, Merry Costmas, I guess? Why are Christmas spices Christmas spices? Would you believe it was because a pope started a war? The Crusades were a series of wars from the Christian church to liberate the Holy Lands from the Muslims. The spice trade did exist, but it wasn't until the Crusades that Western Europeans brought them back and it piqued interest. These religious fighters associated spices with the Holy Lands, and there's this story about the 3 Magi bringing spices for baby Jesus, so the connection stuck. What eventually happened was that spices became a wealth flex. Importing spices like cinnamon or ginger became big business, so rich people would brag about their wealth by featuring spices in their Christmas meals. Food historians even say that the only reason that we have these spices in our wintertime celebrations is because they were considered decadent and people would splurge on them because Christmas! Spices also brought specific foods, like a UK Christmas staple is mince pie, which is something that was brought back from the Crusades, and it's full of spices. Gingerbread and sugar cookies, same thing. So much of our history is shaped by the desire to get spices to Europe for Christmas, and it's mind-boggling. And we're not going to talk about the history of nutmeg, it's kind of gruesome. Before December ends, I wanted to get to this, Christmas in non-European places, and it's kind of odd because Christmas is a very Eurocentric holiday that's been pushed on the rest of the world. For example, in the Southern Hemisphere it's summer, and yet Australians are putting up Christmas lights, Brazilians have electric Christmas trees and go to midnight masses, and even South Africans put up wintry decorations and Santa shows up. Worldwide, Christmas celebrations are similar to European celebrations because colonialism. Damn it, Raccoon, stop messing with my script! Speaking in broad terms, there's some Christmas traditions that are unique to one place. Like in Japan, there's a tradition to have Kentucky Fried Chicken on Christmas. Not just fried chicken, specifically KFC. There's a feel-good story and a marketing story behind it, and I'm leaning to the latter is true. Speaking very broadly, with some small tweaks here and there, the core celebration of the Christmas season is the same, both secular and religious. And if the series has any lesson, it's how you celebrate doesn't matter. It's a time of year that we get together, be with friends and family, and party ourselves into oblivion trying to forget the dumpster fire of 2022. I'll be right back. I need a word with the trash panda. Tonight is New Year's Eve, which is pretty much the end of the winter holiday season. New Year's used to be observed on March 1st, back when the world was a Roman calendar and the year was 10 months long. Then Julius Caesar put the then-known world on the Julian calendar, and the New Year shifted to January 1st, which makes sense as January is named after Janus, the Roman god of beginnings. There's a lot of traditions that hold over from ancient times, like New Year's resolutions going back to Roman times, or a toast at midnight has its history in Christians drinking wine from the Eucharist. Fireworks were used in the 7th century China to scare off evil spirits at New Year's, and literally hundreds of lucky traditions from all over the place that make no sense, but I mean, if you can game the universe by hanging onions on your door, go for it. But to me, New Year's isn't about kicking off a new year. It's more about connecting with people. We get together, we wear silly hats, and we pretend to sing Auld Lang Syne like anyone knows it past the first verse. It's a night where we celebrate friendships and human connection more than an arbitrary change of a number. So from all of us here to you and yours, have a happy and safe New Year's Eve, everyone.